My wife and I had a glorious wedding, and for the most part, it came off without a hitch, but we did not have wine or beer. Boo! Shirley is a teetotaler. And at our wedding, of course, church wedding, we were under the scrutiny of the church members who frown upon alcohol consumption, to say the least. My dad and my brothers did not like the idea because my dad's father, my grandfather had the custom of having a glass of wine, red wine with meals every day. One glass, no more than that, just a tiny bit. My dad and my brothers almost bailed on the party. They did, almost. I had to convince them. And then I thought, I should have invited Jesus to my wedding. Who's going to say something to Jesus? And he's going to transform the water into wine, Anyway, I had to choose between wine or wedding. I have to take on such. Is it recording? Good, thank you. Because the best weddings I ever been to included food galore, drinks overflowing, a kick-butt DJ, and one wedding that I attended even had, beverages in the bathroom. Wow, sophisticated. That is what I call extravagance. And for the most part, the wedding day is a day for going over the top. Right, guys? Right? Yeah, I'm expecting this wedding. Take notes here. It's a day for going over the top. Well, after the wedding, I know that some of my family members and some of my friends gossiped a lot. They gossiped, and did you notice that at David's wedding there was no wine? How cheap. It wasn't my fault. Although I didn't say this to the first service, but my dad had some Merlot. He brought, how cheap, they said. It is something like what is going on here in this wedding at Cana. John tells us that they ran out of wine. No way. It can't be possible. Running out of wine was a big deal then because the wedding celebration was as much about honor as anything. It would have been horrible, an embarrassment, a major embarrassment for the family to run out of wine. They didn't go to champagne or beer because they had two choices, water or wine. And weddings at that time went for a week. Can you imagine? Oh yeah, for a week. Oh, great. It not only would it have been embarrassing for the family throwing that party, to run out of wine, it would have been a horrible start for a marriage. A horrible start for a marriage, if they run out of wine. I didn't have wine on wine, but things worked out well. Yep. It was a wedding mishap, and I can't relate because we didn't have wine. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling the story. So don't go to Shirley and say, "Oh, he was complaining about not having wine." That was like 30-some years ago. But I can relate because wedding mishaps happen all the time, and I've experienced them myself when I married some couples. I remember one matron of honor had surgery a little too recently to be standing for a long time, and she collapsed like timber, like a tree. fell, hit her head, stopped the wedding for 40 minutes. The paramedics and all carried her, and then we proceeded. Another one was, I remember, a bride's mother threatened, to make a scene if her ex-husband, the bride's father, brought his new girlfriend to the wedding, which he did. Oh my gosh, that was a mishap. Of course, if you're planning a wedding, I would suggest that the smart thing to do is to include Jesus on your guest list. Because if the wine runs out, let Jesus take care of the situation. Fill stone jars with water and then let Jesus do the trick. And the next thing it's that you have the finest Merlot you can taste. When Jesus turns water into wine at the wedding feast in Cana, my first question is, how did he do that? How did he do that? But that's my question, 21st century person. Because back then, they did not ask how, but why. Why did he do that? That he could do it or did do it, we're not in question. But why? Because I don't know how he did it. Because my belief in miracles does not require the suspension of the laws of nature. No. Rather, it is enough of a miracle for me if something extraordinary happens that reveals a deep and abiding truth, that reveals God's purposes in a way that I have not known before. I do not need to know the how in order to sense the truth of the why. So, how Jesus converted water into wine, defies all explanation, but it seems pretty obvious in the gospel account why he did it. One reason is because his mother told him to do it. To have that kind of intimacy with your mother is that your mother tells you something to do and you do it because you are reliable. You're faithful. You can get things done. And it is your mother who is telling you. The second reason for doing it is that it saved the host of the reception from extreme embarrassment. And that's the social reason why he did it. To run out of wine at a wedding reception would have been shameful in that culture. It would have been an act of gross inhospitality, a grave sin in a society based on graciousness, offering hospitality. So Jesus saves the people from the loss of faith and keeps the celebration going, Jesus serves the common good in this very real way. There is a third reason, and this is an important one, why Jesus performs this extraordinary act according to the Gospel of John. This is a theological reason. When he does the miracle, it reveals God's glory shining through him. It says to the people in the know, which at the wedding feast only are his mother, the servants, and his disciples, that Jesus is someone to be reckoned with, that there is something special about this man. What matters, not the chemical miracle, turning water into wine, no. I suppose that is interesting, but I don't think it is the point of the story here. Especially because in Jesus' time, miracles were not about confounding or subverting rules of science. They didn't know the rules of science. Miracle stories were not important because they were supernatural. They didn't have that category at that time. They were important because they were significant. They signified something, and that's why they were called, signs and wonders. And from that point, what's amazing is not a literal change in the chemical contents of those stone containers. I mean, that would be impressive in itself. No, what's really significant and meaningful has to do with the stone containers themselves. Do you have a guess? Do you have a guess? No? Why do you think it was important? Well, the scripture says that they brought some stone jars used for ceremonial washing. Ceremonial washing. Sacred. Holy. You know, I'm giving you a deep insight into religion here. And traditional religion is about drawing lines, between clean and unclean. We wash our hands because we are clean. They are dirty. We are good. They are gross. We are delightful. They are disgusting. We are in and chosen. They are out and damned. And Jesus uses these religious or sacred objects for a profane purpose. Wine. Between 120 and 180 gallons of wine. On top of all that had been purchased beforehand. There is surplus. There is abundance. So what could that mean? Shifting from clean and clean to anxious and joyous. From anxiety to celebration. In, out to enough for everybody. Dividing to uniting. Hostility, solidarity. From an us-them story to a love story. Now imagine how relevant that is to religion today. Across religions, but especially in Christianity, a lot of people doubling down on clean and us, them, and in and out. Gay people, immigrants, Muslims, Jews, refugees, dirty, dangerous, disgusting. Let's wash our hands of them. Let's cleanse them. But more, notice the detail of the text. The best wine saved for last. A direct rebuke to nostalgia. Best saved for last. Best is yet to come. The way forward is not nostalgia. The way forward is vision. The way forward is not fear. The way forward is faith. A lot of people think religion is dying, that Christianity is dying. There's some truth to that. And many forms of religion have a hardening of the categories. And I would say that we should let bad religion die. We should let bad religion die and something new and better and more beautiful be born. In other words, you thought water was good? Wait until you taste wine. And you thought that old wine was good? Wait until you taste new wine. In that time, the newer wine was brought out last. But Jesus saves the best for last. And John tells us that this is the first sign of the reign of God. Because Emmanuel, God with us, doesn't call a prayer meeting as his first act of power. Rather, he empowers a party. He's not a party pooper. He doesn't bring boring religion. He wants to celebrate with a party and with wine. Sometimes our religion is not about celebration. Have you noticed when I say, the Lord be with you, and what do you respond? And also with you, lift up your hearts. And you say it the same way. We lift them to the Lord as if they were heavy. Heavy. And I think Jesus chose not this ritual, but the party, because, after 2 or 3 drinks, your hearts are very lifted up, Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Rote religion, ritual observance, and purity don't gladden the heart as much as spontaneous celebration of life. In fact, truth be told, too much ritual and purity can poop the party we are intended to be celebrating. The key to Jesus' brilliance is in this first miracle is that he doesn't conjure up flagons of wine. He uses the existing and perhaps abandoned ritual vessels for a new and radical purpose. I wonder if the followers of the winemaker have the same capacity. Do we have the same capacity? It troubles me that Jesus begins his ministry wanting to show that he can use the old ritual vessels to bring new life of God's kingdom. And yet later, after experiencing the hardness of our hearts, he warns that new wine cannot be poured into old wine skins. Luke 5:37. I wonder at what point Jesus gave up on using old vessels. I wonder if he has reached that place with this emptying ritual church yet. The third day is meant to be the day of resurrection. This was a third day wedding in Cana. And it makes me wonder, what will still have to be crucified before the church reaches the third day potential of new life? As I preach this sermon, there are many who fear that our church, the United Methodist Church, will go through schism because some cannot pour new wine into old skins. And Jesus was correct. There is no place for new wine in old wine skins. They are only inflexible, fractured skins of fear, of prejudice, and exclusion. Oh gosh, I always thank Jesus that despite us, you, Jesus, remain your reckless, extravagant self. And I pray that God will let the wine continue to flow. Flow out of the disused and dusty jars and into the streets where there can be dancing and joy, where with the winemaker of Nazareth, we may empower all people to call out, to life. Cheers to life. And maybe then all people will come to believe in him. Do you believe in miracles? I do. So are you willing to be a miracle worker? Because that is God's calling. Amen.
Please stand.